So we got a big video today, and it is about the new Superman 2025 James Gunn movie. It is out. It is here. People were watching it early because of that interesting Amazon thing they had where if you had Amazon Prime, you could go watch it on a Tuesday. So I did go ahead and see it on Tuesday with the Amazon little situation they had going on. Then I saw it again on Thursday for the global release that everyone got to watch it. And I have a lot to say about this movie. As you guys know, I made that video on Why Is There No Superman video game, and I talked about my love and my growth for my love for the character of Superman himself. It was such a big deal. There was a lot riding on this movie. It felt like this movie was going to be divisive no matter what happened. You had Snyder and James Gunn's cultists. You had people talking about whether it was going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and you had people talking about whether it was going to be the worst superhero movie since Catwoman, Elektra, or Daredevil. I mean, it was crazy seeing the discourse even before the movie came out. So for it to finally come out, man, it feels kind of surreal in a lot of ways. I mean, I knew going into the movie it wasn't even going to be able to live to the expectations I had built for it upon myself, and I know I need to stop doing that, because I can't think that every movie I'm going to go into is going to be the greatest thing of all time. I'm just setting myself up for failure at that point. So on the second viewing, I try to humble myself and go in with unbiased expectations, and here I am today to talk about what I truly thought of Superman. So I think what you all want to know is the general consensus of mine. Do I like it? Do I love it? Do I hate it? Do I dislike it? What do I think of Superman 2025?
Ladies and gentlemen,
and I'm happy to report and say that I actually really liked the movie. I thought the movie was good. I thought it was great. If I were to give it a review and slap a tag on it, it would probably be somewhere between a 7 and 8. I think I'm over time growing more on it, and I'm thinking I'm confident with my 8 out of 10. But I can easily see some days maybe my critiques bring it down to a 7. It's somewhere in that range, but I mean, it's so validating to have a Superman movie in this day and age be objectively good. I mean, the Rotten Tomatoes is at an 80+%. The audience score at a 90+%. I never, as a Superman fan, would have thought that. I mean, back in the day, enjoying Man of Steel almost felt like a sin in a sense. I mean, you tell people you like Man of Steel and they look at you like you shot their fucking grandma on the face, and then proceed to tell you know nothing about comic book movies. And to an extent, I don't blame them for movies like Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice, because that movie was actually ass. And I remember walking out of that movie being so disappointed as a wee boy myself.
Why did you say that name? Why did you say that name? It's his mother's name.
And now to just be here in this day and age where a new Superman movie came out, it's starting off the DCU universe, and people are talking about it in such a positive light. I mean, for that, at the end of the day, it makes me happy that the movie is out and it's here. But I'm here to talk about today whether or not Superman has saved DC, if it poses a bright future for the DCU, and I'm here to talk about my positives and critiques of Superman. I think I might hopefully bring a differing view to Superman because I'm seeing a lot of heavy positivity on the movie and, minor critiques, but I think I'm here because I am a big avid comic book movie fan and superhero movie fan, that I just have a lot I want to say when it comes to this movie, good and bad. I mean, I feel like I should start off with the good because I want to, I want to say a lot of positive for this movie because I hope it does well. Something I got to mention too is it's so exciting to see that the movie financially is doing well. At this point, we only have the domestic opening day numbers. Hopefully by the time this video finishes, I can report what the weekend looked like and if it's showing a bright future for DC. I mean, with the opening day doing so well, you can already see that this is a dawn of a new day for DC. Never before would I think a Superman movie would hit the numbers it's hitting for opening day. It's looking really good. It's the best opening day for Superman movie, point blank period, so that's exciting. If this movie somehow manages to surpass 700 to 800 million, that is a massive win for me. And oh my gosh, if it hit $1 billion, could you imagine? But I don't think the movie's gonna hit $1 billion. I think it's a win if the movie even hits 700 million. I think that's a huge one because you got to look at Superman's numbers for how he performs in box office. He's never been the heaviest hitter when it's came to box office in movies, which is very interesting to me because Superman is such a big character. He's one of the most iconic fictional characters of all time and superheroes at that. So it's always been weird to me that his movies have never showed the backing for that and they've never made the biggest amounts of cash like let's say Batman and Spider-Man do. But this is showing a clear positive track for Superman doing well in the new DC universe. And oh my gosh, could you imagine how Superman 2 does if if this movie does great, again, there is bright things for the DC universe. But now there is a lot I need to say on the Superman movie itself. First and foremost, wow, David Cornsweet as Superman was awesome. I mean, this is one of the best castings since, in my opinion, one of the best sneak castings since, I don't know, Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I mean, this was such a good casting. Obviously, you have the iconic castings like Robert Downey Jr.'s and Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, those kinds of castings, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. But this is one of those more sleeper hits, I guess you could say, where it was like, we didn't know much about David, and I wouldn't say anybody was giving him too much critique or criticism, but the casting just, it hit. It was kind of like one of those fan castings that actually did well, you know? So it was so great to see David as Superman. And you could see in the audience's reaction that there's a certain level of warmth and comfort that comes with David's Superman. He's supposed to be this imposing 6'4" alien being that can do almost anything, right? But David presents him in a way that is so grounded and that's so human that you couldn't just help but love the character. And oh my gosh, I gotta talk about Rachel as Lois Lane. She was such an amazing Lois Lane, and oh man, did their chemistry spark in the movie. You could just tell from the passion. It was so real, the way they kind of went back and forth, and they also were very passionate in the sense that they would even fight. And like kind of one of the first scenes we see of them is actually a big argument that they're having between each other. And that was a very, you know, particular choice from James Gunn, because the first thing we're seeing of Lois and Clark is that they're actually fighting, and people could take that the wrong way, but I think it showed a certain level of realism and a unique look on the relationship of what superheroes would be like in the modern day age. I mean, there was a lot riding on this relationship just for the fact that it was so good to see. It was so good to see Clark and Lois's relationship actually be to what the comic books hold them to be, if that makes sense. For example, when you think of the most iconic superhero couples, I mean, you probably think of what, MJ and Spider-Man, Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, Black Panther, Storm, and the one that is like a huge one for me that's on that level of like MJ and Spider-Man is Lois and Clark Kent. How could it not be, right? Such an iconic dynamic between them. You have a human reporter and you have an alien, almost like God, that they have to come together, and Lois is kind of this only person on this earth and that can kind of ground Superman and put him to humanity's level. Even though Superman does that for himself, she's just kind of that perfect contrast to him. And they play this perfectly in the movie. I mean, I can't enunciate that enough. So it was great to see that justice kind of done amazingly, just because a lot of people had criticism with Henry Cavill and Amy Adams having no chemistry in the previous Superman movies. So I get that, and I think this was great. The other amazing aspects of the movie is just how joyful it is for a modern day DC age. It shows what this universe can be and how bright and hopeful and just positive the universe is going to be. And I think it's a great switch up from the previous tone of the past DC universe. I think this is a great contrast to that. I think it's going to make people come out of the movies with a more positive look on superheroes and just a positive look on life. I think that's what's really good about it. And the past DC movies have been so dark and negative that I think people are just walking out of DC movies kind of depressed or like not really feeling good about them. Whereas Marvel movies, you always walk out kind of happy and in a good mood because the movies are just so positive. They have so many jokes, so many bright characters. I think DC's shifting towards that in a positive sense. With that being said, I don't think every character needs to have that level of positivity that Superman does. For example, Batman needs that contrast. But for Superman, you gotta hit the wholesomeness, you gotta hit the positivity, and this movie does it in strides. That kind of leads me though to some of the criticisms that I will say I did have of the movie, and I'm kind of gonna bounce between pros and cons of the movie. So I talked about the movie being obviously really positive, and I think that's amazing. I think it's what Superman needs. The movie did at times though maybe border just slightly every bit so on the cheesiness. For example, I'm talking about like when we go into the Pocket universe and you know we have that scene with the baby Joey and that like pixelated lava that was kind of giving I was seeing Angry Joe and he was talking about it reminding him of the Minecraft movie, and I'm gonna be honest, when I was watching it, it was reminding me of that too. And maybe that sounds too harsh, but then let's say it at least reminded me of the worst parts of the Guardians movie. I love those movies as much as anybody else, but sometimes those movies, when they get too ridiculous, let's just say that's what that moment was bringing to me. Also, there's some really cheesy dialogue at times, and you could say that's a little bit of James Gunn, a little bit of DC, a little bit of Superman, I don't know, but it is there in the film, and I do think I would like the dialogue to be treated with a certain level of seriousness. I don't think it always needs to be the most serious thing on earth by any means, but there was a certain level of intensity when it came to Man of Steel that I personally enjoyed. And by the way, I should say I am a Man of Steel fan. If that makes you hate me, I don't know, but I am just a big Superman fan. But I wouldn't say I'm a biased Superman fan. For example, Batman vs Superman, I thought thought that movie was trash and garbage. But Man of Steel, there's a certain level of epicness to the movie, I guess you could say, an intensity that I thought was kind of missing with this movie. And I know the movie really wants to have that heavy contrast to the prior DC universe, but I feel like sometimes they could be overcompensating. And I just hope for the rest of Superman movies it doesn't go to that level of goofiness, because it's good, but sometimes you can overdo it and you can cater too much to a younger audience. And I could tell that movie was doing this with some of the, you know, the super childish looking kaiju monster and the almost cartoonish Lex villain in this movie. A little bit of Ultraman. I won't get into spoilers on why he seems like very cartoonish towards the end of the film. Just some of these aspects made the movie feel just like kind of cheesy at certain times, and it didn't feel as intense as I think it could have been. And I know that Superman can be, because I kind of want, you know, the film does have certain moments, like everyone's gonna talk about that, no spoilers, Russian roulette moment with Lex Luthor, and I won't get any further into that, but that's a very serious scenes, and I think the film could have, you know, focused on scenes like that a little bit more and targeted scenes like that to really show the stakes of the movie. Because I'm gonna be honest, I felt safe the entire time in this movie. It felt like more of a romp as opposed to an epic, and that's just something I would kind of say on the film, where I just thought it could have honed it in on the epicness a little bit more. There wasn't very many iconic Superman shots. I actually thought some of them looked goofy when he was flying, like that wide lens shot it does of David Cornsweat's face. I found kind of silly sometimes, and I was looking back at my girlfriend and my friends during some of those scenes, and we'd kind of like do this glance and side eye at each other, like you thought that looked silly too, right? And I know James Gunn and cinematographers probably did this for a different aesthetic of the film, but I think again, the trailers really led it to be this epic and intense film, and whilst it was to a certain degree, I think they could have enhanced it even more, just so people could know how epic and badass Superman is. Speaking of Superman being badass, that is a minor other critique I have of the film, which is Superman gets his ass kicked in this movie. And I know why James Gunn did it, because of all the criticisms of, oh, Superman's too OP, he's so boring, oh my gosh, he's basically like a god. Bro, people complain about Superman being OP, but then praise characters, you know, like Mark from Invincible or Homelander or Goku, and these are all awesome characters that I'm saying, but it's like Superman never gets to get this level of treatment, because they just say he's OP and he's boring. So what did this movie do? They dialed it to 11 in terms of him getting his ass kicked to show you, hey, he's vulnerable. The movie starts off, which I won't spoil, with a very awesome sequence of text talking about how kind of proposing the DC universe, and it starts off with saying that Superman has lost a fight. I won't get into any more detail on that, but hearing that was awesome, and it was sick, and it was like, oh, this is intense. Like he's gonna be vulnerable. And the trailers of Superman showed, you know, Superman landing, crash hurt. They talked about that iconic pose where he's all squirmed up and he's splatted on the ground. This was all fine and dandy, but I would say the film did it too many times, because you do have to show that Superman's weak and vulnerable, and that's what James Gunn was trying to show. And the movie kind of starts off with that, showing that Superman is vulnerable. It was a clear choice, but I will say they went on it for too much. And I know this is a very early Superman, but I at least wanted by the end of the film to feel like, oh yeah, this man can take on anybody and he can win the fight, because it's Superman. He should be the best of everyone. He needs to be the best of everyone. He needs to be the strongest of everyone. But the film for me didn't show that to the fullest degree. I feel like the Superman is gonna have a hard time with everyone, and I feel like he's gonna lose too many battles, you know? Superman should be able to withhold a lot of the threats he was facing in this film with ease. And I know I don't want him to be insanely OP. It'll make the movie boring, but I don't ever think Superman's been boring like that. I think they played it too safe with him getting his ass kicked to show, hey, no, the Superman could get beat up. He's not that strong, okay? He's not that strong. He's not that strong. You're gonna have to show Superman being insanely strong at a certain point, because it's just who he is. He's Superman. It's okay. So again, that kind of leads to the epicness. Like I wanted some more epic battles where Superman's just throwing down with everyone. He's showing his power. He's fully unleashing, but I guess we gotta wait for Superman 2 and 3 to get that. Maybe the Justice League movies, I don't know. But that was a minor critique I also had to propose. The other critique that I will say, and I will intersplurge some pros in here, is the overall cast of Superman. There's certain characters that I don't think needed that much of a spotlight, and there's other ones that I think needed more of a spotlight and more of a shine. Superman kind of gets bombarded in his own film, and at times it almost feels like, you guys know that show Superman and His Amazing Friends? It was almost like the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends show. It's a really old show and whatnot. It's probably not very well known, but this film kind of gives that in a sense. It kind of feels like a Justice League Unlimited like movie at certain points, or like a Superman and His Amazing Friends episode, but like one of the best ones, you know, because with the Justice Gang in the film, it kind of takes away from Superman a lot of the time, and we focus on the Daily Planet people a lot of the time, so it pushes away from Superman. With that being said, some of the people like Mr. Terrific in the film were so badass, but to the point where in this film, the character who had the coolest action scene for me personally was Mr. Terrific. In a Superman film, Superman doesn't have the coolest action scene in his own film. Mr. Terrific is awesome, and he's badass, and he's, in my opinion, the coolest character of the film and the best side character of the film, one of at least top 3. But I couldn't help but feel like, okay, that scene was so badass. Can Superman get some level of that degree of choreography and badassness in his own film, you know? I said I can't wait to see what they do more of Mr. Terrific, but I should also be saying like I can't wait to see more of Superman. I also think they focus on characters like Jimmy Olsen too much, and they have this running gag in the movie that a lot of people in my theater laughed, and I thought it was a pretty funny joke. It was a pretty funny joke, I can't lie, but I just think we didn't need to focus on him too much, and now they're talking about spin-off shows with Jimmy Olsen. Mr. Terrific, I get it, that would be awesome, but like it's, and that's kind of the thing that's worrying me a little bit too much, is the film had a lot of setup, and I just don't want it to be like Marvel. Like, look at Marvel right now. Its problem, it's focusing on characters nobody gives a shit about. Jimmy Olsen, no offense, would be one of those. And like the other characters, like Guy Gardner was awesome. I have always been a fan of Nathan Fillion, but like Hawkgirl, she didn't really give anything to the film, and it's like I can see the DCU universe focusing on some of these characters too much that we don't really care about, and I don't want it to follow the tropes of Marvel. Marvel was on the decline because it's focusing on characters nobody cares about. It's giving spotlight and shine to characters like Echo, 3 Ant-Man movies, The Eternals, and just characters nobody cares about. I don't want the DCU to go this direction, and in this film it was already giving time for characters other than our main course, the main cream of the crop, Superman, and that's worrying because keep the focus on Superman. That's another thing of the film, it's not focused enough in my opinion, and it's very worrying, and I don't want the other DCU films to be like that. I don't want Batman to set up a plethora of other characters. It needs to focus on Batman. Like, let's keep the universe contained and focused. The reason everybody loves Marvel phase 1, 2, and 3 is because it's so contained and focused. Iron Man 1 movie, just focus on Iron Man. Thor, the first movie, just focus on Thor. Captain America, the first Avenger, just focus on Captain America, the first Avenger. Like, the films were way more contained. The Guardians of the Galaxy, it was just the Guardians of the Galaxy. It wasn't any more characters. Then when it went on to phase 3, we can kind of diversify a little bit more, and then we get the Infinity Wars and the End Games because it deserved it. It built up to that. Superman already focusing so much on the Justice Gang and the Daily Planet crew is like, yeah, you need to do that for the Superman film, but then if you're going to focus on Superman's characters, why not focus on the ones that matter to Clark Kent and Superman himself? We could have had more Clark Kent scenes. We could have had more Clark and Lois scenes. We could have had more Ma and Pa Kent in the film, by the way, which they were lacking severely. Pa Kent has a really emotional and wholesome speech, but it never to me hits the degree and intensity of, let's say, Rosemary Harris in Spider-Man 2. That scene that she says, you need to give up the things you love in this world to be a good person and to pursue what your destiny is. It's getting me welled up even just thinking about that scene. But the Aunt May scene hits so well because Aunt May is built up so well in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. The Pa Kent scene didn't hit that much for me because we only had one scene of him, one really impactful scene at that. I know they love him and they show the love for Clark in the film, and it's really beautiful, but I haven't seen enough of it. Again, like Tobey's Peter Parker and Rosemary Harris's Aunt May in the film, like you feel that love they have for each other and that they would really do anything for each other. Even Andrew Garfield and Sally Field as Peter Parker and Aunt May in the amazing duology, that I could feel the love they had for each other and that they would do anything for each other. I want to feel that for Clark and his parents. I just want Superman's, family around him to build, whether that be Lois, the Daily Planet crew, I suppose, and just his parents. And I just want to see that love for his family to build. With that being said, of the family, Crypto in the film is actually really awesome, and you do see the love between Superman and Crypto, and it's really beautiful, and Crypto actually is way more of a focal point in this film than I ever expected. And that's the thing that I just don't want the DCU universe to get lost on. I want it to stay focused. My favorite superhero movies are the ones that focus on the character we bought the ticket for. That's why I love the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man series. That's why I love the Batman that just came out. These stories stay more focused and contained, and I'm there because of the person who the movie's title modeled after, you know? And I just don't want the DCU universe to get stuck on this. And the movie, I will say, lost a little bit of focus at times, whilst introducing some interesting characters like Mr. Terrific that I am excited to see more of, but it didn't need to focus on any others. By the way, I should say Guy Gardner I really did like too. Oh, and the film also didn't give much focus to Lex, in my opinion. You know, Lex Luthor hates Superman just because we know they're constant rivals, but the film does more of telling than showing why Lex despises Superman. I mean, he makes idiotic decisions in the film just out of his pure hate for Superman, but you have to convey that, you have to show that. You can't just tell us why he doesn't like Superman. You have to show us why he doesn't like Superman. Show us something directly that Superman did to Lex that makes him despise this man. That way we can build this particular rivalry. With that being said, Nicholas Hoult does a fantastic job as Lex in the film, but I never bought Lex hating Superman. I only bought it on a cartoonish sense. But yeah, these are some of my thoughts I had to say, and again, it is a hopeful future, I will say. At least the movie was good and great at that, and I am hopeful for the DCU universe, but again, I just want it to be a focused universe. I don't want it to lose its touch. I just don't want the DC universe to get too cartoonish. I don't want it to get lost. It needs to build up engaging rivalries, engaging characters, dynamics. And I know it can because it shows it in this film. The dynamic that it seems to be building towards of Superman and Mr. Terrific, it shows what the universe can be when it comes to its dynamic of its characters. But I don't think, again, this film showed it to the best degree. I have a lot of hope. I do have a lot of hope, and that's good that I am saying I have a lot of hope for Superman because that's all the character is about. But I do have some trepidations and some light fears that I have to be honest of, and I think, you know, I think it will work out in the end. I think it's important for people to not call this film perfect or anything, because then it's going to lead to only greater improvement. Like, man, I can only imagine what Superman 2 is going to be, which, by the way, make a Superman 2. Do not make that mistake. I swear if they rush World's Finest or the Justice League one more time, I'm gonna crash out. Just give the man a Superman trilogy, please. I pray for the love of God, just give me a Superman trilogy. Ant-Man has a Superman trilogy. Why could fucking Superman not have a trilogy? Please give Superman a trilogy. Okay, I'm crashing out. I'm crashing out. I need to stop. Anyways, guys, do you disagree with my points in this video? Do you agree with my points? I want to know what you loved and hated about Superman. This was a long video. I need to stop talking. I need to shut up, and I need to go watch Superman again, because with all the criticisms I gave, I do actually really love and enjoy the movie, but I think it can be perfect. Maybe I'm mad because it's not perfect, you know? Maybe I just need this movie to be perfect. Is that too much? Yeah, that's probably a crazy sentence to say, but it's because I love Superman, and I know he's the Holy Trinity. He deserves to have a movie as good as Spider-Man has with some of his Tom Holland movies, with his Tobey movies, as Batman does with the Christian Bale, Christopher Nolan trilogy. Superman deserves it. I'm glad this movie's doing well, but I know he can be perfect. And this movie is not far from perfect, but it's not there yet. But I am hopeful that it'll be there one day. There's a particular line in the film that stood out to me the most, and it's one I want to acknowledge and end the video off with. Clark has this line about kindness being the new punk rock, and it really resonated with me, and it really made me think of the future of the DC universe and the fact that hopefully it does become the new punk rock in a sense. I hope it's a new age of where kids can say they finally like Superman without being, you know, punished for it or clowned for it. It always felt like being a Superman fan, you can never outwardly say, hey, I'm a Superman fan, because it was lame and it wasn't the cool thing of the times. The evolution of liking superheroes evolved to not liking them at all, then to only being able to like characters like Batman and Iron Man and sometimes Spider-Man. I hope the new age allows for people to be like, hey, I like Superman because his movies have been awesome, his content's been great, and he's just an awesome superhero, and I like what he stands for. It gives me a lot of hope in that sense, and I guess that's where I want to end off the video, and I propose that to say that that's why I am at the end of the day happy with this movie. If it does make more people Superman fans, and if it does make more people proud to be Superman fans, then that's a win for me at the end of the day, and that's all I could ask for this movie to do. And I guess the question to end off the video would be, is Superman and is the new DCU the new punk rock? Till next time.